It's our go live shimmy that we do. We're live. We're here. It's Nonfiction Book Club with another book. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our new time for the moment. Will we do it again? Who knows? But it's a Friday. We have no idea how this will feel, if it'll be different. And do we talk about different books differently on Friday versus Saturday? No one knows.
Honestly.
Yeah. But thanks everyone for joining us, even with this weird new time. I'm Deboki.
And I'm Nicole.
Cool. And we're Nonfiction Book Club.
Wow.
Really, every time we pare the intro down just a little bit more.
And we're gonna stop using names at some point.
Yeah.
I'm like, what's the minimum viable introduction?
That's like I definitely realized, like, for the thumbnails, like, because I used to have our faces in our thumbnails, and then I noticed that you stopped doing that, and I was like, oh, I should stop doing that too. And then I one step removed where I don't have to like add this, and then I was like working on like a new style, and it was gonna get complicated, and I was like, Deboki, you always make these at the last minute. Do it in a way where you can just change a few colors, put in a thumbnail or put in the cover, and then you're done.
Correct. That's my system. That's yes. I changed a month name and some color. Plug in a book cover. Exactly. It takes me all of 3 minutes. And it looks like it took me all of 3 minutes, and I'm okay with that.
That is the brand here.
True in advertising.
Yeah, we want to make sure that it looks like we put as little effort into the graphics for this as we want to clear that graphic design is not our passion.
No, it really isn't. It really isn't.
We are
I mean, okay, but listen, now it is actually my day job to be thinking about like thumbnails and stuff. And one thing I will say is that like you want to make sure that you are not setting up a promise that you can't deliver on. Like that, that is a critical part of the YouTube thumbnail is like, does the video deliver on the promise of the thumbnail?
Right.
And so in my off duty hours, I try to make sure the promise is nothing. The promise is all the book. The promise is book.
Book, yeah. And
I can deliver on that. I know that I can deliver on that promise of book.
Yep. Well, so our book this time that we have delivered on is Infinite Life by Jules Howard. The subtitle is The Revolutionary Story of Eggs, Evolution, and Life on Earth. We picked this last time. It was a group pick, so you all were part of this.
Responsible. This is we're all in this together.
Exactly. And it's because my pet interest for the past several years has been just like how babies are made. Like how do we get to babies? Partly because of like making a baby, and also partly because it turns out it's like, I don't know, cool. I think like working on some of the stuff I've worked on has given me more of an appreciation for how weird biology is. Like the fact that like things are alive is pretty wild. And so I had a lot of moments during this book where I was like, oh yeah, things are weird. Like it is weird that we're here. I guess before we get into that, the premise of this book is eggs. It is just nonstop eggs. It's about how eggs have evolved, but also like how the evolution of eggs has really shaped the evolution of different animals and set up animals for different like levels of success. Like there's a lot about like how insects have really become what they are, but thanks to things about their eggs, learning about how like eggs might be responsible for like insect metamorphosis, like that kind of thing, and kind of why that might be an advantage, but also mammalian reproduction, how we got to the placenta, which is my favorite organ. It's weird. Like I'll do a little shameless plug. We did a Tiny Matters episode about the placenta, and it was really cool to learn about. Male seahorses have a placenta that's made just like from the skin of their like stomach, I guess.
Did you guys have a guest on that episode?
Yes.
Who was your guest on the?
So we had 2 guests. So I talked to an evolutionary biologist named Oliver Griffiths, Ollie Griffiths, and then I'm completely blinking. Michelle Oyen was our other one. She was a bioengineer who studies the placenta.
We're spoilers for SciShow. We're working on a thing. We're working on a thing that I can't even begin. Like, it's separate from like whether or not I should. It just would take me too long to explain the thing that we're working on. But we are interviewing. This is like we're like months away. I'm in Boston, so we'll hang out, I guess, when this happens. Yeah. But interviewing a couple different scientists, and the only one whose work I had like properly previewed for me is a woman who is, I'm actually blanking on her name now, but is like the placenta and how it's a giant cell, how it's like the biggest cell. And anyway, that whole other, sorry, I was like, who's your placenta scientist? You're
yeah. No, I mean, I want to know now.
I got a whole other, I'll look her name up and I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
Some people know of all the hot placenta scientists.
Yeah. Because the placenta's pretty cool, you guys. It's really, really, really weird. Like, it's weird. Okay, so I do want to quickly get to Susan's point here, which I do agree with. It didn't bother me as much, but I do think it is like important. Like, and I don't think like he really addressed this in the book. Like the fact that the focus is on eggs that are coming from animals, but like there are like eggy structures involved in other parts of like life too. Like, let's see, egg plants. This is what I do.
Wait, okay, you're about to blow my mind. What do you mean?
Well, I mean, like, so I guess like, okay, let's look at like flower reproduction. I'm not as good at like other
flowers have eggs.
Well, they have like ovules, or they have like ovaries. So like they have like their equivalent to like kind of that thing.
Okay.
So
okay.
Yeah, let's see.
Depends on how you define egg. Okay.
I think basically this is true for so much of biology.
Yeah.
That like how you define things makes a difference. And I think it's easy to dismiss that and be like, well, the focus here was on animals. But I think if you're going to make the argument that eggs are like what made animals like so successful in this way, it does help to have like a differentiation, or just to have like a definition early on of what is an egg, and just kind of like make that a little bit clear. Like, what is it that we're specifically talking about that makes the egg of the egg, like the animal, worth really highlighting. It didn't bother me as much though, just because I did sort of just take it for granted that we're focusing on animals, and I was mostly curious about like the evolution of animals.
Right. One thing I will say about this book is that, we talk sometimes about like ways in which different nonfiction books meander a little bit, like lose the plot almost. This man did not lose the plot. He had a plot.
It's very focused. Yeah.
And he was focused. He never strayed far from eggs. I was just reading actually a book that would have been very all the ways that Nonfiction Book Club is like diversifying my reading, but I just read like a book I would never have picked up were it not for all the time I've spent reading with you, Deboki. The World Without Us, which is basically like it's speculative nonfiction, I guess is how I would describe it. It's like if humans disappeared tomorrow, just disappeared. We're not talking like Matt, like if we got raptured. The how we go away isn't important, but like humans gone, then what happens? Like what happens to the world is sort of, and it's like walking through anyway, really interesting. But because it's speculative, it's a book that it's a thing that my biggest critique of the book is that it often, in his setup of like, here is why this thing will break down in this way, he does like so much setup where I'm like, you just spent like 20 pages talking about the world before us. That's not the assignment. Like
yeah.
You had an assignment. After, like what's next? So I don't know. Like I that being my most recent nonfiction read, I really did appreciate his commitment to the assignment.
Yep. Yeah, I found this book extremely readable, which I think is, especially after our last two books, was like a really nice change of pace. I
Mhm.
think it was very like it's like not a thing I would usually be like, oh, this was amazing. I loved how short these chapters were. It made it
Yes.
like so easy to digest and easy to kind of get through. Where it was like, yeah, I am like taking on a little bit at a time, and I think like it builds really nicely. Like I really liked the way that that kind of worked, where it's just like it was just like a nice read, especially because the writing, on the other hand, is very purpley, and I like am not one to judge. Like I have been there, like that. I love indulgent nonfiction writing. There were a
Uh-huh.
few times where I was like, especially early on, I think when I was getting used to it, where I was like, "Ooh, this is going to be a lot," but then I kind of got more used to it, and it was like not that. Like I was like, okay, I like
Yeah.
it now. But there were still times where I was like, ooh, I think there could have been some editing there. Like I think some things like maybe didn't quite fully like cohere writing wise. And so that was like the only thing. But I think that also worked really well with the short chapters
Yeah.
because it was so like extravagant with the writing. It helped to
Uh-huh.
have it then also be simultaneously really compartmentalized like an egg.
Yeah. Well, and to Susan's point, like he narrates the audiobook, and there's a way in which all of it, like for it's nonfiction, and he's like sharing all of this research, but he's also like continually tying things back to his own points of
Mhm.
enthusiasm, like his own entry points on
Right.
things of like this school, this time in his classroom that he remembers so well to this day.
Yeah.
And like that to me also is helpful for like to have the prose be that way.
Mhm.
Let's see, to have prose like that and like removal of the author, I think would that it would have bothered me, but because he is also so present in it, it made
Yeah.
it feel like, okay, yeah, this is you are this is your emphasis, this is, you know,
Right.
this is like this isn't a clinical description of a thing, this is Jules
Yeah.
Howard's enthusiasm for this thing as at this moment.
Yeah, I feel like an interesting comparison, weirdly, is like Fathoms, because we both didn't really enjoy Fathoms that much, but that's also very similar kind of like indulgent writing and very
Yeah.
personal. But something about this, maybe because again, I think it was like much more efficient with what it was like,
Yes.
what its point was, and much more focused. Felt like it came together a lot better for me.
Fathoms, okay, yes, much definitely it's the focus of it. Fathoms often like diverged from it got away from Wales. It got away from
Yeah,
Wales. And it
yeah,
got away from Wales. The thing that I found grating about Fathoms is that it was get drifting away from the Wales to make comparisons about things where I was like, you actually don't know what you're talking about. So it's
yeah,
maybe, I mean, I will say I knew nothing about what he was talking about. I
yeah,
just blew my mind with the flowers having eggs. What do I
yeah,
know? Um,
yeah.
so maybe like there's more of that. But I remember in Fathoms there was like something like talking about like language or immigration or something in this way where I was like, skirt, no, pump the brakes. No, like, this doesn't work the way that you're saying that it does. And I'm actually like bothered by the claims that you're making. Whereas this is like the purpley prose here isn't just it's like it's not necessarily for its own sake. Like it is
Yeah.
still rooted in the descriptions of the egg. So I really
Yeah.
yeah, your point about focus I think is a big part of
Yeah.
the difference here.
And I think also a lot of the language part of what makes it so much more effective for me here too is a lot of what he's doing is setting the scene of like what the landscape of Earth looked like at the time.
Yeah.
So in some ways there's something about that language where it is so like different that it also like supports the fact that he's describing a world that's so different. Like there's something
Right.
about like
Right.
the kind of like overwhelmingness of like the adjectives and everything kind of coming together that for me like also suits the fact that we're talking about a version of this world that would look so different, like
Right.
unrecognizable to
Right.
us. Yeah. Yeah. I really enjoyed this book. There were, and I mean, again, I say that, and then at the same time, there were also a lot of things where I was like, oh, I just wish this was slightly more edited. And I'm also really curious because this is actually one of the rare times where I didn't listen to the audiobook. I just
Mm.
read the book. So I'm curious like how different it would be if I read the or listened to the audiobook. But there was like a weird thing that kind of bothered me it's not like a bad thing about the book. It's just like kind of surprised me. It's sort of like the rare moments when he would actually refer to like specific people or scientists or science writers, where it was like weirdly, like for a long time in this book, he like very rarely makes any specific mention to scientists. Like there's actually like a lot of like passive voice in terms of how he'll talk about things getting discovered and like how like things are known, and that I actually like don't love. Like I it's a little like it's just weird to me. Like it's like I'd rather, and maybe that goes to the efficiency. Like part of what made it efficient is not spending a lot of time getting into like how humans discovered that, especially in the beginning part of the book. But it did also still like kind of weird me out while I was reading it, because like one of the like first times he mentions a person is to talk about like how Carl Zimmer describes different reasons for why sex evolves, and like Carl Zimmer's like a really well-known, respected science writer, but it was weird to me to then on the other end not like refer to like some of the specific scientists. Towards like the second half of the book, that starts to happen more, and there's some books that have clearly been really influential towards this book that like make a big difference to like how he like is approaching like what he is writing about. But that was like one thing that just kind of weirded me out.
Yeah, it's like just like a broad science writing thing of obfuscating your sources in that way. That's like weird and not, I don't know. I almost immediately switched to, I read very little of this with my eyeballs because I was like having a hard time connecting with it, I will say. Just because, so for all the praise of like the focus, and I don't actually care that much about it. So there's like a pro con of this.
Right.
That's not a problem with the book though. That's just like that just means this is not a book that I would have read for any other reason than as a nonfiction book club pick, which is totally fine. Anyway, I found that transitioning to just the audiobook, it was like I found it more readable that way. But it for like more or less the same, let's see, it's like the other side of the coin of what you're talking about though, where there's a way in which it was just incredibly conversational. It was just like, well, then this happened and then this and then that. And so it made it a little bit easier for me to just like, you know, my pal Jules Howard is going on about his current hyperfixation.
You like seated next to someone at a dinner who just really wants you to know about eggs.
Exactly. And I'm like just cutting my little papers for my cutting my sewing pattern paper while he talks this man talks to me about eggs. But I agree with like the actual sort of critique here of yes, to Susan's point, it's targeted to like a non-sciencey reader, explanation simplified, lack of sources, etc. Yes.
I will say, I think there are books that are targeted towards a non-sciencey reader that are also like full of explanations that are not quite so simplified and that still refer to their sources. So I think it's just like, that's why it kind of stands out to me as like a little bit of a frustrating choice. But, you know, I accepted it for the story that it was telling me, because it's like I'm still like intrigued. And though I will say, related to this, and this is like again, this is like a nitpicky thing. It's not a thing that ruins the book, and it's also, I understand like it would cost money. There would be a lot involved. I wish there were more figures in this book. Like he does so much work to like like describe things, but I've kept finding myself wanting to like just Google like images of like the different creatures and stuff, and like there are all these like figures like showing these different eggs and stuff. That actually wasn't the thing that I needed to have illustrated to me most. Like I get why they're like in the book like as like showing how different eggs have looked over time, but they're ultimately like not that like edifying. Yes, the kangaroo uterus. I want to know what the kangaroo uterus like. I'd like to better understand what that looks like. You know, I think there are like so many moments where that would have been like a better use of visuals than like seeing that there are different eggs. Even though again, I understand why those were the things that they like did the images of.
but not actually useful. Yes, totally.
Yeah.
I was surprised, like at several points while like I was listening to the book, but I did actually pick it up a few times to like look for. I was like, surely there's a visual here that I'm not seeing, and no, there wasn't. There never was. So
yeah. Oh yeah, this is one of my long notes was about like early on about like the passive voice because it was frustrating me. Yeah.
I love our
we talked about like, the eggs needing to be studied properly. Polarized light is often like for the eggs to be studied properly, polarized light is often used. Like passive voice is like not inherently bad. It doesn't have to be bad, but it's just like frustrating.
Yes. Who is studying the eggs? Who is using polarized light? Where are the people doing this? Yeah.
And so at the same time, like I liked it then when later like he did actually kind of talk about specific scientists and how they looked at things, but then it was also jarring because it had bothered me so much early on.
Yeah.
Yep. And especially like, I mean, I am not a paleontologist. That's surprising, like it's shocking. So I feel like there's so much here where it's like I want to know more about how people study that sort of thing.
Yes.
And I think and this maybe goes to like Susan's point about it being targeted to a non-sciencey reader, like I think it would have been one thing if it was sort of consistently that way, but that's again, like I said, like where it was a little bit weird, where some parts were more explained and some parts were kind of less explained.
Yes. Yeah, totally.
But otherwise, I really enjoyed this. Like, I think for me, as like someone who doesn't know that much about eggs, but like really wants to understand more about the evolution of reproduction, it was like really, really cool to like just kind of have a lot of like concepts laid out for me that I like, and I like definitely like went through, like have been going through the sources and like flagging things that I'm like, okay, I'm gonna kind of read more on this.
Yeah. Good. This is like for your purposes. This is like an essential primer, really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. One day, I too will sit next to someone at a dinner and be like, "Let me tell you, tell you guys about the evolution of pregnancy." I've already done that with the placenta a lot, where I'm like, "You guys, the placenta is cool."
Let me tell you about it.
Yeah,
it is cool. Listen, that's true.
Yeah. Was there anything in this book that like super like surprised you?
Let's see. There were long sections of this book that were giving me sort of traumatic flashbacks to when I first started working on Journey to the Microcosmos, where he was describing a lot of just details about bugs that I was like, I don't want it actually.
The mites.
Speed. Let's go 3.5x. I'm not interested. Let's get.
You don't want to learn about how mite poop is like why you're allergic to dust and how eggs are being laid on your face currently right now.
Mm-hmm. For context for everybody else, but that's when I first became EP of Journey to the Microcosmos. We were like reevaluating process stuff, and the very first time that I was like, oh, I will also do like a producer pass on a script was the dust mite script. That was the very first time that I reviewed a script. And I just remember being like, oh, cool. I will never know peace again.
You're welcome. It's very like, if I have to know this, you all have to know this too.
Exactly. Yeah. This is in my head. This is going to be in everyone's head. It was a good video. To be clear. Great script, great video, and also haunts me to this day. So. Done.
Yep. Yeah, because it turns out like, wasn't there like a whole section on mites in here? There was, right? There's like a whole arachnid thing.
Yeah, yes, there was. Yes. It was mites in with a bunch of other all weird little guys going about it in such weird little ways.
Yeah. I feel
How
like
about you? What was the most surprising thing for you in this book?
Yeah, I think one of the things I remember being like, I don't know, like it didn't blow my mind, but for some reason it just like surprised me was learning about mother fish. And
Uh-huh.
like one of the original, like kind of early, probably live birthing animals.
Yeah.
Just because like hearing that, like and that was one where he kind of like laid out how a little bit more about how we like knew what was
Yes.
going on, whereas like this is
Yes.
what the
Yes.
discovery was.
Yes.
And I think that was like part of what was cool about it was that we could see like this fish with the embryo in the body, which is like wild.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Both like a very cool like fun fact, but also the manner in which it was shared, including all like the discovery
Yeah.
element of it, and then what came after like that. I very much enjoyed that whole section of the book.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, I'm like going through. It's funny because we're coming off of like having these books that we talked about that were like in some ways easy to talk about because we like didn't enjoy them. And this is a book where I'm like, I enjoyed this. And so mostly I'm just kind of sitting here with like fun facts.
Yeah. Yes, you have a collection of fun facts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed this. I feel like where I land on this is actually a little bit more of like it was fun. Like this is like a 3-star.
Yeah.
Me,
Yeah.
which is in fact the
Yeah.
hardest kind of thing to talk about. If
Yeah,
I
I agree.
love it and can gush about it, then like that I can talk about all the things that I think are amazing about it. If I hate it, I can talk about why I hate it. But like 3 stars, totally fine. If you're interested in eggs,
book.
read this book. If you're not interested, don't read this book.
Yeah.
That's it. That's my review.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that like comes up like in terms of like talking about again, because I've been like thinking about like how to write a book proposal is like how to craft a book that's not just like that doesn't just feel like a series of magazine articles kind of stapled together. And I think this just threads the line of successfully doing that. Like I think it's like a little bit just on the other side on like the better, like not like a little bit more, because basically the idea is that you want to craft a book that has an argument that you're trying to convince people of, right? Not just like I said, like a series of magazine articles. So I think like the magazine article version of this would just be like, here are interesting eggs and they're cool. I think the argument that he's really showing is like about the importance of eggs to evolution. And I think maybe it's just like missing just like a little bit more like punch or something to like fully like make it to something that would be more than just a book that's interesting to people who really want to learn about eggs.
Yeah. Like a little bit just a more of a stronger thesis statement, I think.
Yeah. Because I think for me, the strongest parts of this book are where he connects eggs to like survival and like makes the argument of like, this is why insects are so successful, or like this is why like why these particular animals, like why mammals may have like
and the trade-offs that mammals make for to have like the bigger, more complicated gestation periods. I also and to that point, like the stuff about the trade, to go back to the placenta, the trade-off, like the trade-offs of like survival and sort of the interplay of like the fetus. But how did he phrase this? Like that there's a like a misalignment of like value of like what the mother that it's not in balance of like everybody we're mutually agreed, the mother and the fetus have like shared goals, objectives, interests, like that's what's going on there, which I also thought was like an interesting way of thinking about it that I
definitely. And that's like such a big part of like how like coming off of like having like worked on that placenta episode, it's like that is like such a part of like how we talk about the placenta, like, and how people like kind of convey like the tension of like especially like early pregnancy. Well, actually all of it. I mean, part of it like is he talks about like, for example, preeclampsia. Preeclampsia is like super mysterious still, which like I kind of wish like was a little bit more clearly articulated. Like it sounded a little bit more. I don't think he did this intentionally or anything. It's just like I don't know. I'm doing my nitpicky thing of like just being like, we know what happens in preeclampsia. We don't know anything about like really why it happens, or we know a little bit. But it's like very mysterious, like many things of pregnancy, for many reasons that I'm happy to sit here and like talk about. But yeah, but basically that's part of the thing like that makes the placenta like so interesting, is that it is such a weird tension between like the fact that it is really the baby's organ, like it's made from cells that come from the baby, but it's like belongs in the mother's body, or I guess I should say like the embryo or the fetus, but it like belongs in the mother's body and literally just like like you said, like caves its way into, at least in the human, into your uterus. But it was really interesting talking to like both of the scientists that I talked to, because one of them was coming from the evolutionary biology side, and he studied it especially like in reptiles, which was fascinating. I wasn't really expecting a lot of like reptile placenta work, but yeah, like just talk about how like it also like compared to the biomedical engineer I was talking to, they both were specifically talking about how unique the human placenta is in how invasive it is, and like how much that sets us apart from other animals, which is part of why it's really hard to study, because like we use mouse models to study so many things in health, but mice placenta are like actually nowhere near as invasive as ours. Like they're actually like a pretty bad model for the human placenta. I don't know. Sorry, I'm at my like dinner table talking about the placenta.
Yeah, keep going. Yeah.
yeah. Well, you guys. But yeah. Anyways, the point of all that was like, yeah, the placenta is like such a weird. I mean, human pregnancy is like such a weird tension that he like kind of gets to about like the resources, like, and I think that would have been really interesting. Yeah, I mean, he definitely talked about it. I think it's hard because I've like, and this maybe again goes back to Susan's point about this being more for a non-sciencey reader. For me, that section was like, okay, I've read this thing and I kind of want to read a version of this that now brings me to a different level of understanding. And that's obviously like not really what the point is here, where it's like, really, this is like explaining this in the context again of like, how does this shape our evolution? How does this shape us?
Yes. Yeah. But, yeah, I don't know. Okay, this is like a thing, a sort of, I don't know, evergreen tension when we're talking about books, is this sense of like, is this criticism that I have fair, or am I like disappointed in the book for not being something else?
Right.
Being book? But I will say that like to the, like on the one side, the criticism is unfair because you're asking the book to be something that it was never trying to be. But on the other side, to go back to this thing of like making a promise that you're not delivering on, like I think that there's a way in which all of this comes from, like these are questions the book is raising too. You know, like, it's not like you're saying, why isn't this, you know, random unrelated thing in there? It's like, hearing you explain all of this to me is like my next obvious question, and you didn't you know, for my next obvious question. So like, I don't know.
I think it's also like part of the sorry, go on.
You go ahead.
I think like part of the trade-off of the efficiency of this book is that there's probably so much more that he could have written, and like we kind of like jump from like egg to placenta in a way, whereas like, and like from dinosaurs to humans in a way that felt like, oh, it feels like we've covered a lot of time. Maybe we haven't. Like maybe in the grand scheme of this book, we're actually like pretty close together. But from like, just from my vantage point, it feels like, oh wow, we got here fast.
Right. Yes. Well, I mean, we did.
We sure did. Yeah.
It's a little guy.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We did get there fast.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
I went back and looked up the slides. That's what I was trying to figure out for the scientist that we were hearing from.
Yeah.
Talk to later, and because I was like, I said that specifically, it's that the outside layer of the placenta is a giant single cell. Like that was
that makes sense.
The outer layer.
Interesting.
And it is. Hold on. Wait. What did she say? It's like it's 13 meters squared. The syncytiotrophoblastic cell.
Yeah, continuous multinucleated layer. Wow. You know, so just like fused together.
Crazy. It grows, you know, big giant cell. Big giant cell. And then she talked a lot about that and like mechanics of it and like what you do with anyway. scrolling, getting my crash course in human placenta again.
Yeah.
Reviewing that. This woman she's now an assistant. She's a professor of physics and biology. Like her background was in physics first, and then
cool.
Somehow she wound up.
That's where all the physicists are doing these things. They're not getting jobs in physics; they're getting jobs in biology.
And yes. So anyway, look for just this video that isn't going up until December. So
in December, I'm gonna be like,
in December we'll follow back up and tell it all.
Yeah.
You'll learn all about it. Anyway. Yeah. I don't know.
That's like a lot of what I have to say about this book, because I think like we said, it's like it was a good, like I like the phrasing of like it's a survey course. I felt like I got a good survey of eggs that helped with like some stuff that I feel like I've been trying to learn kind of overall in terms of just like evolution, eggs, how things evolved onto land and stuff too, because I like do not have like, I feel like I've gotten like increasingly interested in evolutionary biology over the past year or two, but I haven't really made a lot of progress on learning it. So this was handy.
Yeah. I mean, and there's so much weird stuff in like evolutionary, like that, so it's cool, like, because it is the story of like weird crossroads and decisions being made of creatures. Like, what if I do this? And there were a lot of what if I do this is that never worked out, and we don't know anything about them.
I mean, the best part is that in a lot of cases, there's not even a conscious, like, what if I do this?
Yeah.
The thing is just what the do this happened.
And sometimes it doesn't work out, and sometimes it does. And now we're here.
I was surprised this book did make me want to learn more about the evolution of sperm, which I love. Like, there's like an early thing about sperm where I was like, oh, right, like which one came first, like the egg or the sperm? And I was like not really expecting that, but I appreciated it.
So another great point for this book.
Yeah.
I feel like evolution, there's like a lot of weird stuff that you have to take for granted if you're in like, just there's a level of weirdness that is intrinsic to it. We at the time when I was working on Microcosmos, I was also working on Eons, and we had TikTok pitch meetings that were consistently like, most of the things that we wound up doing were born out of a bunch of people who were like, nerds about this stuff having a conversation. And like, they just learned some new thing, but in order to explain this new thing they learned, they would gloss over something that they all knew. And like, would be like, I'm sorry, what? And then that would be, oh, people don't know this. No, we don't know this. That's weird. So that was always that was most of my job in those meetings, was to
be the person who doesn't know.
To say, I'm sorry, you just said that real casual like, and that wasn't real casual like to me. To explain.
Yeah, I think that's like a really, I mean, we can like go off track here if we want to, might as well. Just because I've been thinking about this, like, I like, sometimes people will ask me, because like obviously like, I got into science writing from like doing a PhD, and I think sometimes people think that like you have to do a PhD to get into science communication, or you have to have the science background. And like, definitely I feel like part of the way that I write and work is built on having that experience, but also like SciComm depends heavily on people who get into it without that background. Like, it would not be the same if it were just all of us who spend a lot of time in labs. Like, it is actually like way better because like we have someone in the room to be like, that what? Like that, you just take that for granted. Like, there's so much knowledge that I think you take for granted when you're working in science, and like, it's really like,
it comes up all the time in pitch meetings where like somebody will ask some part of a pitch that we'll pause to be like, who here knew such and such thing, like, and because those pitch meetings are a mix of, we have 5 editorial team members, and then 3 producers and AP, like I don't know, like 5 production people also on those calls. And like the editorial team mostly has science degrees. The production team almost the only one person does. And so like there's a little bit of in some of those conversations, sometimes where it's like pop culture references that we're trying to like suss out. But, that's also important. Like, is this reference gonna work? But for like the sciencey stuff, like sometimes there's a moment where it's like, oh, the only people who raise their hands are the 4 people with advanced degrees in some sort of science. And so like that's important information for us to know as we proceed. But the other, like the trick with that though, as the, you know, the alleged lay people, the longer you do it, the longer you work in this space, at a certain point you lose your ability to lay claim to that.
You gotta like unlearn everything.
Every video I ever worked on, so that's how I'm good at my job.
This is funny because there's so much science trivia that I feel like I'm like, oh, I just assume everyone knows that. Like I assume everyone knows that, like the poop beaches or like that kind of thing, and you're like, oh right, no, people don't know this stuff.
People just don't know that. That is not actually common knowledge. The struggle.
But that is the struggle. That was what made working on Microcosmos really fun because it was like so out of my comfort zone. Like I knew so little about microbes going into it, so it felt like very like early on. I was just like, oh, this is like completely new to me. Like I know so little about these guys, and so there's stuff I remember writing early on that I was like, this is amazing, and then like 3 years in, I was like, that's tired. Like we know that. We all know that.
We all know. We all know about the weird little guys.
Yeah. We all know that this is hard. Like we all know that nobody knows what anything is related to. Like
God.
And then you have to like remember, like, no, you didn't even know that a year ago, Deboki. You were an idiot. But
you were so naive back then.
Yeah, well, that's kind of how this book made me feel, which was nice too. Like, I think it's always like I appreciate a well done survey book. Again, even it may not be the book that's like the most like changes the way that I like see things or anything, but I really appreciated it.
Yeah. I'm glad I read it. This was not like got to the end and I was like,
It's no Empire.
No, also sometimes is part of the process with nonfiction book club too, you know?
Just us cursing each other's name.
Why?
I'm from a distance. I hear Deboki. Why did you make me read this?
No.
Though, you know, speaking of covers, I also do want to say that I like the color choices for this cover. I like the neon. I like the orange.
I like it. This is a pleasant object.
Yeah.
I enjoy this object.
Yeah.
Which also counts for something to me. Since I was going to purchase it regardless, I was happy when I went to pick it up from my bookstore when they handed me this pleasant looking object. I was like, thank you.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, do we have anything else we want to say? Anything else anyone wants us to talk about? Any opinions from the audience?
Final thoughts, opinions, vibes, etc. I keep looking around because I had a book that I wanted to suggest as our next book. And I don't know where I put it in my home. And I don't remember what it's called.
Oh, no. I see the problem now. Do you remember what it's about?
Yes, it's about it's like a trans queer history book, but it's like cross-cultural sort of framework of indigenous, like two-spirit. It's also a pleasant looking object. It's like a purpley color with like colorful text.
Purpley color cover with what text?
It's like colorful text, but it's like okay, let's see. hold on. Let me see. I found it. So Many Stars. Trans BIPOC oral history book. Yeah, So Many Stars. An oral history of trans, non-binary, genderqueer, and two-spirit people of color. I guess it's more of like a blue than a purple. My bad.
That's purplish enough.
Yeah, right. Okay. This is purple. I said purpley. I didn't say purple.
Yeah.
This is purpley. So I don't know that, and we could do another poll.
Yeah.
If people want to do that. Okay, so that's one option, and then I'm literally just like looking around my office for.
that is the usual approach.
What are the books I own? We'll do Filter World, which I think was one that I suggested. Actually, yeah, that's what we'll do. What's this other book? Okay, hold on. Come with me. Walk with me. Let's see. The other one here is The Fabric of Civilization. We'll do a three things poll. The Fabric of Civilization, how textiles made the world. That's our three. Those are our three options. So Many Stars, Filter World, and The Fabric of Civilization. Three really different vibes. Truly, these three books have nothing to do with each other. Could not be any less related, I don't think. So it's up to you guys. Which direction do we want to go? Do we want to do a history book? Do we want to do internet bad? Internet bad.
Algorithms.
Or do we want to do fabric fun time? These are books, these books don't have anything to do with each other. They do have they have plenty to do with books I have chosen. I immediately am like, I've done all of these books before.
Yeah, it's true.
In a different font.
Yeah.
So their connective tissue to one another is that these are all books Nicole Sweeney would purchase. You could look at them at a bookstore and be like, I'm sure Nicole bought this book. And it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
I am what they say.
The algorithms know to recommend these books to you.
Exactly. I'm like looking at the list. I'm like, what's the nearest analog that I would pick for each of these? And truly, I have one. This first one is basically the Stonewall Reader Redux.
Yep.
The second one is, there's a couple options. Second one is Surveillance Capitalism. It's Mood Machine. Maybe more if I kept going. And Fabric of Civilization is worn and maybe a little bit consumed. So
well, we're very 50-50 right now.
Oh my God, not a tie. Not a tie.
Based on 2 votes, just one more person, just vote.
Somebody come participate in democracy.
Whoever votes next could potentially, unless they vote for Filter World. Just to really make things complicated.
Let's see. Wait, hold on. I'm gonna post about it. I think I address new post. We are doing a poll right now to pick a new book, and it is tied. Please come to democracy and tell us what to read. Post. We should no. I don't want to vote. I put the suggestions up. That's what I did. That was my contribution. Was picking the book. And now that I've picked the books, there's nothing else for me to do. So let's see. I'm gonna post this over on Threads as well. This is a very serious live stream.
Sure is.
We're very serious people. Not a three-way tie. No. That's the opposite. Oh no. Crazy.
Well,
you know, look what we've done.
I know.
I was trying to call in reinforcements, and those reinforcements did the opposite of help.
Those so many stars has picked up another vote, though. So
what just picked up another vote?
So many stars.
Okay. 4 votes. You know, listen. I feel that at 4 votes, we can call it.
Yeah,
that's
I think we can. Yeah. A winner has been decided, so that means we're calling it. Cool. Yeah. So we're gonna do so many stars next time, and we will figure out when that next time is at some point. Yeah.
Yep. Great.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, thanks everybody for hanging out with us.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. Thanks for doing the Friday live stream, and we'll see you at some time to be determined to talk about so many stars.
Yeah.
Cool.
Bye.